Obi-Doo, it's everyone's favorite boomer and vintage lens enthusiast. And today, we're going to look at, I can take this lens hood off, NIKOR 50mm 1 to 1.4, and of course it's AIS, so it's a dumb lens. It's all mechanical coupling, there's no electronic contacts on it. But does that make it a bad lens? No, this is a great lens. I got this in really excellent condition. It was a little pricey, but you know, I wanted to round up my trinity, my triad of 1.4s from the top lens manufacturers, which would be Pentax, Canon, and now Nikon. I'm going to name some other names. There's Chinon, there's Hexagon, there's Minolta. Some of these are raved about as being legendary, but this is a legendary lens. I think the first iteration came out in 1967, and they had a mechanical version up until 1989 or something like that. It's 7 groups. I'm talking about the glass elements. There's 7 elements in 6 groups. That's what it is. And I don't know who owned this, but that's buttery smooth, no slop. This full f-stops, 1.4 to f16. Focuses down to, oh, look, it goes 1.5 or 4.5 meters. They all do that. They all do that. So, well, of course, this is on the Z6. The Z6. Fine camera in and of itself. This is my benchmark camera. It's a professional model, let's face it. It's got excellent dynamic range and lots of features, and it has a built-in IBIX, which is in-body image stabilization. It has a manual mode for the image stabilization, where you just plug in what focal length it is, and there's a whole bunch of them. I think there's like 30 spots, so you can have 30 different lenses to style up. Say this is lens 12, and then you're good to go. Of course, it'll work on any 50mm. It doesn't have to be 1.4 or 2. It just takes that number and puts it in the EXIF data as the maximum aperture, which is somewhat helpful. So what did I do? I went to a town called Glen Rock, which is sort of a ritzy neighborhood where close to where I live, and they have a main street. I think it's called Rock Road, and they have a bunch of stores there. And at the western end of Rock Road, they have a big rock there. It's some outcropping. It must be as big as a small house. That's how big it is. And if they have 2 train stations, that's how important this town is. They have one on the west side and one on the east side, I believe. So what else is good about this combo? I used the FTZ, the original FTZ adapter, because it has a tripod socket, which is handy for using a telephoto lens without a tripod socket. Rather than use the camera tripod socket on a big lens, I'd rather use this thing. 1.4, what's so special about 1.4? It's great at low light levels. So I went to Glen Rock right before sunrise. I got there right before sunrise. It was like dusk, and I was able to shoot wide open, and I was at ISO 800. I was using 1/250th of a second, stuff like that. You could see in the EXIF data I pasted into each picture. And of course, as it got lighter, I stopped down to 2.8 and f4, and I used faster shutter speeds. Also, if you're doing street scenes, it's best to shoot across the street and try and keep the camera parallel. So if you're on one side of the street, you want the camera to be parallel with the other side of the street, and then you'll get better, sharper looking pictures, because if you're tilted, one part of the street is going to be closer or further away from the film plane, and guess what, the depth of field that would show up. And it's so critical. If you focus on a lamppost in front of a store, you could see that the lamppost isn't focused and the store isn't. So there's that. And I was using the maximum magnification on this thing in the manual focusing mode, and that helped a lot. So what else about 1.4s? Well, 1.4. Look how small this is here. Let's take this off. Let's see. How is it? Look how small that is. That's small. It's lightweight. All right, if you compare it to f2 or 1.9, they're going to be a little bit smaller, without a doubt, because there's less glass and you don't need as much metal to hold everything together. But for just a little bit extra bulk and a little bit extra weight, you get the benefit of a 1.4. And let's face it, the big three, they knew what they were doing. Now, I previously did the Canon f1.4 FD mount. I'm sorry, I have to give that the edge. That definitely has the edge. I think that took the best pictures. This is tied with the Pentax 1.4. It's better in some ways and just as good in others. But I'm not saying this is a bad lens. It's definitely worth it. If you're a Nikon guy and you feel you need a Nikon, then you could be justified in buying this lens without a doubt. Now, stop down, because I also went to the park. It's some pictures at the park. Sure, I went to the cities at night and they had a lot of lights and stuff, street illumination, and it worked really well. But, you know, how good is it otherwise? Well, you know what? It's just as good or better than any other lens around. Stop down, you really can't tell the difference between a Canon and a Nikon or a Pentax. They're all well corrected. As soon as you get past 2.8, they're virtually identical in most respects. So why buy a f2 or a 1.8? There's no need to get one of these unless you can't afford it. You know, f2s, 1.8s, they seem to be like between 1/3 and 1/2 the price of these in excellent, like new condition. That's the only issue. But if, you know, in a pinch, if you're going to do a lot of low light level, you can't go wrong with this. Cannot go wrong with it. Because stop down the f2, they're just as good as a 50mm f2 wide open. But this is stop down. And then once you get to 2.8, 4, 5.6, 8, 11, 16, no difference. In fact, I think these look nicer than some of the 50mm f2s I got. Stop down. But, you know, the proof is in the pudding. You watch the slideshow that's following, and this is how it went. I went to Glen Rock. I got there somewhat before sunrise, which is like maybe 10 to 7 or something like that. And it was like 24 degrees out. It was brutal cold. And then on the way home, I stopped in the park. And it was a couple hours later, but the park was still brutal cold. I think it was below freezing. And I took a bunch of pictures in the park, all stopped down. And then like a week later, I went to a different town. I went to Popton Lakes, which is a darker town. I mean darker in illumination. I don't mean anything else. And instead of being a ritzy town, it's more of a working class stiff town. So the stores look different there than what we have at the Glen Rock. Although they both old-time main streets from like 100 years ago. And a lot of buildings show that. And so this is the way that's the way it went, and that's the way we're going to look at the pictures. First, it's going to be Glen Rock, right before dawn, and then the park, you know, early morning but very bright out, and then Pompton Lakes. I got there since it was closer and easier for me to get to Pompton Lakes. I got there when it was still really dark. I stuck around just to daybreak, and then I left. And so what we'll do is we'll just jump right into the pictures, and then you could decide what you think based on any of my earlier videos with other lenses of this caliber and type. I could recommend this lens. Without a doubt, this is a nice lens. You know, it's, invest in a lens hood. You know, they're cheap, couple of bucks, why not? Pick them up, put it on. You know, it needs an edge. These older lenses have not as high-tech coatings as modern lenses. But still, you really don't need it, but I use it. So let's jump right into the pictures. I live close to this park. It's a 10-minute ride by car. And that means I could go there whenever I want. Usually I go there every Saturday morning or Sunday morning or Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon. Or if I happen to be off from work one day, I could pop over at any time. And when the weather's nice and the days are longer, I can always stop in after work until the crowds start, and then I don't go. So I went this one day. It was very cold and snowy, and I went to check out the 50mm f1.4, and it was a bright, sunny afternoon, like an hour before sunset. And of course, I was stopping down to, f8, f11, fast shutter speeds, like 1/200th of a second, varying the ISO depending. And this thing cranks. It is really fine. I took so many snow pictures because they remind me of the ice caps of the planet Mars from all those the satellites we have orbiting Mars. And it's this scale invariant. In the macro or the micro level, it looks the same. And I was just amazed by that. Like you could stand 2 feet away from something and it looks just like the ice cap Mars. And you could take a picture and it would look like that. So at any rate, this is a fine lens. Stop down to f8, 11, 16. It performs admirably, just as good as any other 50mm, or even better. So, if you're on the fence about buying a f1.4 50mm, well, don't worry about it. Any of the top boys like Nikon, Canon, or Pentax, they perform a really nice stop down, which is mostly when you're going to use it. You use it during the day, you're stopped down, you're not going to use that f1.4. So don't hesitate to buy one if you can find one at a bargain price. And that's the thing, 1.4s have a premium, which could be double or triple of what a regular f2, f1.8 lens could be. So you got to keep that in mind. But look at these harsh conditions. This is a high contrast, low sun, snowy, and this thing just put out beautiful. I mean, it's a nice lens. This is one of those lenses I could just recommend it to anybody at all. Go for it. And then, since it's 1.4, once or twice a year, when you can really use it, you got it. Or if it's 1.4, you could take pictures and add that to your itinerary. Yeah, I could take low light level pictures as well as other daytime snapshots. Of course, this is on the Z6, and the Z6 is an exemplary camera. I know a lot of people don't like it, but I think it's a nice camera compared to a lot of the other cameras I got. And compared with these vintage lenses, you can't beat it. Of course, you could dial in the in-body image stabilization to whatever focal length you want, so it works great with prime lenses. If there's short zooms, then you could pick some median and just go with it like that. If you have a longer zoom with say 75 to 150, you're going to be shooting mostly 75. You sit at 75. And that's just the way it goes. And this is another thing. This is another one of those telephoto prime lenses, where it's such a well-corrected 50mm that if you put it on a 20 megapixel plus, or say the Z6 is 24 megapixels, you could just crop it and it acts like a zoom lens. Like I said, what if I took a picture and at the park I noticed that Bigfoot is in the upper right-hand corner there? Well, I could zoom up on him, or UFO landed in the background. Well, then I got it. But, it just for your regular artistic endeavors, you can always crop a little bit or a lot. Oh, those pesky ancient astronauts, they left this behind, Look at all the human beings around who have smartphones but are so stupid. So, primates had nothing to do with this. It's the ancient astronauts. They just disguised it to look like something that could have been made 200 years ago. That they're so slick, those ancient astronauts. So, the park was just perfect lighting. It's like end of January, late afternoon, beautiful clear day. You just can't beat it. Just can't beat it. So, all right. So it performs well under normal lighting conditions. How does it perform under low light conditions? I got there right before 7 o'clock, and that was just when the sun was rising, and I was shooting wide open. And you could see this lens does have a a lot of vignetting in the corners. So you got to keep that in mind. If you put it on a crop sensor, it doesn't matter. But on a full frame, you'll definitely see it. Now, I was across the street. It's a wide boulevard. Maybe I was 40 feet away from the other side of the street. And it's interesting. Some things looked like they were in focus and some didn't. It seemed to bloom. Now, that could be the camera doing that, under exposure conditions. Now, these signs were sort of like had their characters backlit, like the Summer Blends is a perfect example. But his camera still seemed to bloom. But the problem is if I expose for the signs, so they're probably exposed and everything else would be utterly dark. Now, the Z6 does have a wide dynamic range, and it has a built-in HD mode, and you could set the thing to retain highlights or shadows and all that cool stuff, which is interesting. If you look at the street lamp was sharp, but some of the marquee of that sign didn't look sharp, other parts did, which I find amazing. What was the depth of field? I was shooting at f1.4, and a little bit later I stepped down to 2 and 2.8. Now, if you look here, this is just a sign. The sign looks pretty sharp in all the details. This is a rich town. They had like, these artisanal shops. Look, they have an EV charger in the middle of the town. So, it's a town that's got bucks. And it's quaint. A lot of these main streets are quaint. Some are quaint because they're sort of run down and worn out looking, and some are quaint because they just have like a weird shops, or they'll have a sculpture. Here's a naked woman in a cherub. Cherubs have wings. Well, I wish I had a girlfriend that looked like that, but that's neither here nor there. I work with a guy who looked like this. Well, his facial features, I don't know about the rest of them. Here's an interesting post. Damn, I wish I had a girlfriend look like that. Glen Rock. Why is it called Glen Rock? Because they have this big-ass giant rock at the end of Rock Road. And it's like the size of a small house or a bungalow. And, of course, this used to be woods years ago. And you can imagine walking through the woods and come up to this big rock. And it's all surrounded by trees. And then civilization came and cut down all the trees. And they put houses around it. And then, they put a plaque on the rock, like that makes it cool or something. I don't know. So I go to these towns, and you can see what businesses stay, how long they stay, when they go out of business, when there's new businesses come in. And then they have signs, and those signs change. And this probably used to be a row of old-time buildings, and they knocked it down and put up a more fancy, modern-looking mall-type arrangement of suites and stores and stuff. And depending on which way you look, the light reflects from the eastern dayrise to the western darkness. And then there's always these ephemeral signs, like these strawberries were just painted. See this blooming around the Alpha Fit Club? Now, this was through a window. But I noticed this lens seemed to be blooming a little bit, as opposed to like the Canon 1.4 didn't seem to do that. I looked through it, and it looked clear, like it wasn't foggy or anything. So I don't know what to say. As someone had graffiti, confetti. I don't know where this confetti came. It was like 3 weeks after the New Year. I couldn't imagine they left confetti around like that. So I don't know what that was all about at all. Starbucks is everywhere. But look at how quaint the Starbucks is. It looks like a sort of a little fairy castle or something. Don't worry, pizza is coming. Beekman. Beekman is a character played by Bill Murray in some movie he was in. Glen Rock. They have a big Glen Rock sign. So I thought that was interesting through the window. Francesca, brick oven pizza and pasta. I'll have to go there one day when they're open and check them out. So now I'm back at the park. And there's a footprint. Everything was frozen solid, of course. I just wanted to see what this lens did. And of course I was checking out mulberries. I want to see how a lens handles mulberries. There's a bumper crop of mulberries this year. And since it focuses down to 1.5 feet, I could set it f4, 5.6, and I could check out the bokeh of the background. It looks very smooth and not busy at all. And of course, then you get the ice and all the weird patterns it makes. You know, I'm just mystified by ice. You know, it's just so how it flows and it's a solid at the same time and makes strange patterns. Oh, the reeds. Well, you know, you got to check out the reeds. There's the reeds, there's a swamp, there's a stream, there's ruins. And, you know, since it's so close, it's a 10-minute ride. I do my 40-minute walk. You know, see what is the water level in the stream? How high up is it? How low is it? How much white water is it? You know, and then, of course, there's obligatory long exposure to get some water movement. And if I get there during in the early hours, then, you know, you get some backscatter from the sun, and this changes. It's the same, but it's different depending on the lighting. Man, those ancient astronauts, I can't get over them, how they built this, and it's all overgrown, and people completely forgot about it, and they make up stories about how people did this. I don't believe it at all. I mean, really, look at your fellow citizens whenever you're out shopping or doing anything. They did not do that stuff. You know, this lake freezes solid where you can walk across it if you want to. And if you get a long period of frozen weather, then there's the ice fishermen go out. This is one of my reference pictures, a tattoo parlor sign. And now I'm in Pompton Lakes. And I got there, it was still relatively dark. It was overcast anyway. And it was closer to home and easier to get to. And then the lighting is different. And they have different stuff. The Farmview Pork Store went out of business after 30 years or something. Yeah, they're gone. So I figured I'd take a picture of their sign before the sign goes down. Of course, income tax is seasonal. Heads up, bro. This store's been there for quite a while, and they're cardinal. Pompton Lakes, their animal spirit is the red cardinal, and you see that like the Cardinal Cafe, and here's an all buff, pumped up cardinal. Me lift weights, me strong. Yeah, their window mural's been there for quite a while now. Now, if you notice, all the towns, they invested in these street lights. And they have a little round disc in it with the initials of their town. Like Hackensack has an H, Glen Rock has an HR, and of course Pompton Lakes has a PL. I forget what was there. Was that a tattoo shop that was there? I think it was. It might be. But I never heard of a tattoo shop going out of business. But the barber shop's been there as long as I can remember. Mimi Nails has been there for quite a while. I guess they're good to go. They've been locked in for a while. And a True Value Hardware, he's been there like 50 years or something. I forget. Max American Bar and Grill. Yeah, he's been there for a while too, for as long as I can remember. Although they fixed it up and renovated some time ago. Swan Nail went out of business. They didn't make it. Oh well. Although the cleaner's been there for a while. Or maybe they made enough money and they closed up shop. You know, you can never tell. So this is a one-to-one crop of the previous picture from across the street. And then I walked across the street and I took another picture closer up. Now look at the flare there. I thought these lights were T-shaped. No, that was just the flare from this lens and the coma. So look at how sharp that is. The PL, the lights, even the bricks in back of it. You stop down a little bit, you get a lot of extra depth of field. A little shop of hoarders. How quaint. I never seen them open though. But then maybe I never go there when they're open during regular business hours. I like to go make my desolation tours, pretend I'm in North Korea, where everything is like wide open and empty. But who knows, in America, maybe there'll be a big recession or depression, and no one will be able to afford anything at all, at all. The bottom dollar is the NIKOR AIS 50 millimeter 1.4. It's a really nice lens. It could be used wide open in a pinch. Of course, why you buy a 1.4, you want to use it wide open. And it performs admirably, outstanding at any other aperture. So you could definitely go get one. Don't worry about it. Shop around. Maybe you could find a cheap one. If you don't mind it being like just good condition, they're very reasonably priced. And they're only slightly bigger and slightly bulkier and slightly heavier than a 50 millimeter f1.9 or f1.7 or f1.8. I appended a train departure to this. So starting right now, you may want to turn the volume of your speakers down. Quick, 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 do it right now, do it right now.